Welcome to Midlife by Design. I'm Lori Lisai, your host and human design alignment coach. I am so excited to share this episode with you, as it's been one that I have wanted to launch since I first met our guest. Today, we're diving deep into the fascinating intersection of nutrition and human design with Kelly Harrington, who is a registered dietitian and human design expert. Together, we'll explore how understanding your human design can transform your relationship with food, help you manage stress, and how understanding your HD can help you with the hormone haze of midlife. Yes, seriously. Expect practical tips on meal planning, managing sugar cravings, boosting adrenal function, all of these things designed to empower you on your journey to vibrant health and well-being. So let's get into it. Welcome back to the Midlife by Design podcast. I'm here today with Kelly Harrington, and I am so excited about our time together because what she has to talk about is just going to blow your mind. Kelly and I met at a retreat a few months ago, and she is a registered dietitian as well as a human design expert. And she blends the two together in such an incredible way. And I just remember sitting at the table across from her during a couple of meals and just being enthralled. And it was like, I couldn't get enough, hear enough about what she had to say. So I'm super excited to have her here today. And so Kelly, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes. Thank you so much for having me, Lori. I'm so excited to be here. And I remember those meals too. We met in Mexico at our De Luna retreat, and I just instantly connected with you. I think our one lines, you're a 5-1 profile and I'm a 4-1 profile. And we just were bouncing off the knowledge from each other, and you were asking me questions. And yes, I just loved our conversations there.
So good.
So I am a registered dietitian, like you said. For 24 years, I've been a registered dietitian. And for the last about 12 years, I've been practicing from this functional nutrition approach, which looks at the root cause. It finds the root cause of people's health issues, and it's using like food as natural medicine, and it's balancing the core areas of health. So I look at also stress, sleep, physical activity, emotional well-being, social connections, self-love. So all of these areas, because when people come to me with their health goals, I can tell them what to eat and give them suggestions based off, their preferences and their abilities. And yet, if there's more to the picture, like deeper below the surface that's going on, their changes aren't going to be sustainable. And they're going to go back to the old same habits, the old same responses. And so this is why I find it so important to look at their human design, because to me, their chart is almost like the root. It's their energetic root. And I can see what's driving things below the surface if they are stuck in some of their habits or patterns that they're doing with their nutrition or sleep and stress and all of that. So when I first found human design, quite quickly, as I learned more and more and more, I remember thinking, whoa, there's so many health connections here that I'm making as I was learning. And I started writing down a list of all the ways that I could see how I could incorporate human design with my clients. And so as I got trained to be a human design analyst, this is what I've been starting to do, is just teach them about their human design and incorporate what I see them doing from a human design perspective, and how I can support them from that energetic perspective for more longevity and more long-term sustainability. So not only are we working on the food, but we're working on the energy aspect of things as well. So I just have found it to really improve people's health and well-being from just a different level, from a different perspective than what I was doing before I knew about human design.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So much more holistic approach. That's that's amazing. I wish all medicine were like that, but thank you for the work that you're doing.
Awesome.
So being that our audience is midlife women, I'm curious about, from your perspective on the human design side, what challenges do you think women in midlife are facing? And what do you think is the help of knowing your human design? How does that help us?
Oh my gosh, there's so many different areas. So, like from a health and nutrition standpoint in midlife, of course, this is where we're having hormone changes, and particularly a decrease in estrogen levels and even progesterone, and how that impacts various areas of somebody's health. So when it comes to the nutrition aspect, protein is like the number one thing that I focus on with people. Is I will calculate their protein needs, and I immediately dive in with them, like, how much do you need? How much are you getting? It doesn't necessarily have to come from animals if they don't eat that way, but we just have to get enough protein, because protein is going to help balance your hormones and prevent them from dropping as quickly as they might if you're not getting enough protein, because protein helps make hormones. And protein is also really important for maintaining your muscle mass, because as we age, our metabolism slows down because we're losing muscle. And so that belly fat that we tend to accumulate midlife is like so depressing. Yeah. And it seems to just like show up overnight. And so having protein, stabilizing your blood sugar, which protein helps do, and then adding in strength training, like lifting some heavy weights if you can, are like three of my top ways to help women midlife as far as like nutrition goes.
I love that. And as you were talking about like protein being the first thing that you mentioned, I feel like I have heard that for years. Like, you need to get protein. I have two teenage boys. They're talking about protein all the time because they go to the gym and they're building muscle, But it's great to hear from your perspective how it actually helps us in midlife, and why is it such a big deal?
It is a really big deal. Yeah. And most women don't get enough, I would say. Maybe just don't feel like eating it. It's to have meat takes some planning ahead. And with their busy lifestyle, it might not just be as convenient. And isn't it interesting that men and like your sons, they're naturally going to protein, but women, it's not like our first tendency.
So true.
And we need it almost even more than men do.
Especially at this age, right? Is there a percentage? Is there a percentage of your body weight that you calculate?
So I would say what you go by is grams of protein per kilogram. I use kilogram body weight. So that's just like your weight in pounds divided by 2.2. And then whatever that number is, you're going to multiply it by 1.2 to 1.6 grams per kilogram is what women of our age need. I would say 1.2 grams at a minimum. And so it depends on how much you weigh then. You can also, if someone is overweight and they're trying to lose weight, you can adjust that body weight to be more like what your goal weight or more closer to an adjusted body weight would be, so that you're not overfeeding the protein and you're just feeding the muscle mass. So you can do that. But I would say 1.2 to 1.6 is what the research showing. Even higher than 1.6, you could go all the way up to 2.2 in the research, which is a lot of protein. I just don't always tell people that because it is a little overwhelming. That is so much protein. But eggs are a complete protein. Any protein that comes from an animal is a complete protein. So like fish and eggs and dairy and meat and all of those. And then plant proteins are like beans and nuts and lentils and legumes. You would need to eat quite a lot more protein. I think about 95% of the protein from animals is absorbed, 95%, which is quite high. That's great. And then about 40 to 65% of the protein from plants is absorbed by your body. So it's definitely less. You're going to need to eat more.
That's interesting. Okay. So I'm thinking about myself as like young 30s woman and just starting maybe on the perimenopause journey. And I'm curious if, knowing what we have coming in midlife, if there's anything that you would suggest for people in the younger stages of perimenopause from a dietary standpoint and or human design standpoint.
Yes, the first thing that comes to my mind is like some kind of stress management.
Mm.
If you have, I feel like everybody has some sort of stress of some kind, like a low grade stress, it seems like. And so, in my opinion, managing that stress in depending on what's creating it is so high priority. I often see people that come to me and stress is the culprit of a lot of their health issues. It's taking their adrenal glands and their thyroid function. It's messing up their gut microbiome and their digestive system. It's suppressing their immune system. They can't sleep very well. So it is like the root of a lot of issues. And this is where I can look at their human design and literally their root center in the human design, that bottom center in the body graph, and look to see, is it undefined? Is it defined? What is it connected to? How can we work with that? And then I also look at the solar plexus when it comes to stress, which is the triangle on the right-hand side of the body graph, because this is your emotional center and it's home of the nervous system. And so that nervous system is turned on either in fight or flight or parasympathetic. You have sympathetic, which is fight or flight, and then you have parasympathetic, which is rest and digest. And I see those very connected with the adrenals, and they're all connected through like the HPA axis. So emotions can trigger that stress. And then if you do have, depending on what your solar plexus is, defined or undefined, I love to teach my clients about that because it can really help them manage their stress if they understand how they process emotions.
Ah, that's amazing. I'm curious if I can use myself as an example to ask you a little bit more about that. So I have a pretty defined root, and my emotional solar plexus is defined as well, but it's defined unconsciously. So my only channel connecting the root and the solar plexus is unconscious. And so for me, I don't always feel like I'm a super emotional person. It's really sort of in the background, and I've got a lot going on in my root. So I'm curious, could you use that for an example? Like, what would you tell me about stress management?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So your center being defined, your root center being defined is like almost like this consistent pressure that's being fueled by adrenaline to move things forward and to take action. And
Yes, it
then
is.
you have a lot of gifts coming off of that root that want to take action.
Mm-hmm.
So that can add to that as well. But it's a beautiful thing. Like this ability to take action is amazing. The root is actually quite impressive. It's just that when the stress starts to become too much is when you get into the not self of it. So one thing you could even do is where in the root might the not self be coming from? Is it one gate in particular that you feel more than the other? And it might change from stress occasion to stress occasion, for example. But then also understanding that the root center is about joy. It is about joy and finding the joy of life. So how can you flip the script and allow yourself to find stillness? Gate 52 is all about stillness, and you have that full channel. And that stillness is so important for you to reground, reset, and then look for the joy in your life, because to me, that's almost like a mental thing. And I would say rephrasing the self-talk even. And for you, especially, the stillness is almost like your medicine. It's your sun sign. Oh my gosh, it's your sun gate.
Yeah, yeah.
That is like the medicine to your stress and your pressure when it's starting to feel out of control. Yeah, definitely. And because you have the connection from your root to your solar plexus, this is where I would recommend some movement, some physical activity to get that pressure and that emotional energy just moving through, to release it. If the pressure is building up like a pressure cooker, you can release that with some sort of movement that feels really nice, depending on how you feel at that moment.
Oh, I love that so much. I love the connection of joy with the defined root too, because it explains why I love to dance so much. I could dance for hours.
Oh yes, that is such a good way to move energy.
Yeah.
I love dancing too, and I have neither defined the root or the solar plexus.
Oh, so interesting. So
I
interesting.
know. Yeah. So That would be one area that I would talk to with clients. So this is going back to your original question.
Yeah, yeah.
The second thing, if I might add another one,
Please.
is at your age, like in the 30s, because I do work with clients of all ages. I currently have a 17-year-old client and like a 52-year-old client.
Love it.
Is blood sugar stability. So
Mm,
this does go back to the protein as
yep.
part of that blood sugar stability. But if you can eat meals and snacks that are more stabilizing to your blood sugar and create less spikes, then you're going to have overall less inflammation. You're going to have like healthier hormone balance for the future, and probably even a lower body fat weight, because reducing the spikes in blood sugar reduces insulin,
Mhm.
and the and insulin is I mean, it's the important hormone because it lowers your blood sugar back to a normal level, so it's important. However, if you're having a lot of insulin released in your body because you're eating foods that spike your blood sugar, it's actually fat storage promoting.
Right. Hence
And
the belly fat when you get to the later years, right? And if you've
yeah,
been spiking in your diet, yeah.
yeah. And also, when you go into perimenopause and menopause, the little bit less estrogen that you have, or a lot less estrogen that you have, it also makes you a little more insulin resistant. So this is something that I have worked with clients on and seen, is that sadly, they're eating amazing and they're still having insulin resistance of some kind. So, to me, that comes back to like the inefficient estrogen levels.
Mm,
Uh, I don't think everybody has to necessarily experience that, but I have definitely seen that. So if you can start now keeping your
yeah.
blood sugar stable. So my three ways to balance the blood sugar are protein, fat, and fiber. I would recommend eating at least two of those every meal and snack. So if you can't have all three at a meal or a snack, try to eat at least two. So I help people plan their meals or structure their days around the protein, fat, and fiber. I give them that container and they get to decide what foods they like that have protein, healthy fat, and fiber. And they can create that themselves, because I don't want them to be so reliant on me on what to eat. I'm giving them like the container, and then they have the autonomy to flow within that.
Yeah. Oh, and I love that because that actually allows them, if they want to dig into that level of their human design, that allows for things like consecutive appetite and eating the same thing over and over again for a while and then switching to something else, right?
Oh, yeah, that's a really good point. So you can look at the arrows on the top left side of your body graph. If your arrows point left, that tells me that this client likes a lot of structure and planning and consistency. So that's what you are, where maybe you like to plan your meals out and you like to know what you're eating and maybe eat the same types of things on a regular basis. And you need more food to feed your brain. And
Mm.
then if your arrows are pointing right, this tells me that they're meant to be more like go with the flow, and they can go longer without eating. Their brain is more passive, so they don't have to fuel quite as frequently. That's actually probably a harder one with the right facing arrows, because if they're so go with the flow, there is this aspect of planning ahead that's super helpful to staying on track. And so I assist them in, okay, how can we plan ahead to an extent where it doesn't feel like you're in a box or it doesn't feel limiting. And then within that plan, you can allow yourself to flow. So like if you plan your dinners on Saturday or Sunday, and then you shop for those dinners for the week. Well, if it comes Monday and you don't feel like eating what you planned for Monday, then maybe you could choose Thursday's dinner or something instead. So you have a little flexibility, but you're still setting yourself up for success by having some kind of plan.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. So these ideas of like stress management and then like balancing the different components of food to help balance your blood sugar, those are great if you can start them in your 30s. If you're already in your 50s, it's still great, right? Like the best time to start is now if you haven't started yet, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. For
Okay.
anybody. And it doesn't, male, female, doesn't matter the gender. And even kids, this would be, I know the stress might not be quite as much for kiddos, but maybe depending on their age, but the blood
Yeah.
sugar stability is so important for brain function as well,
Mm.
because high blood sugars, they just feel terrible and they create a lot of brain fog. and they start to disrupt your gut microbiome if you're eating foods that spike your blood sugar. And that gut brain connection is really significant.
You're speaking to the choir right now because I can definitely attest to how much I feel this in my body now. I feel like I'm maybe just more aware of it, but I have quite a sweet tooth, and taming it has been an ongoing exercise for me. And it's summer, it's creamy season. We call them creamies. It's like soft ice cream. And we have,
Oh, yeah.
these cafes nearby that have these gourmet flavors like spicy chocolate. I'm just like, oh my God, I can't even. Thankfully, they change the flavor every week. So, and sometimes I can pass very easily, but it it never fails. Like I notice the brain fog, and I notice myself like, oh boy, words just aren't coming quite as easily. What was it that I wanted to say? Yeah, that is no joke.
Totally. Yeah. And I see in your chart when you mentioned sugar cravings,
Mm-hmm.
it takes me back to the channel 4130.
Mm.
The 41 is the fuel gauge for hunger
Ah.
or fullness, even for you're either hungry or you're empty or you're full, you don't want to eat yet. And it's a hunger initiator, gate 41 is, which is cool because it makes sense because that's actually the first gate in the human design new year. It starts everything. It's the start
Exactly.
codon for the new year. And then gate 30 is that clinging fire. Gate 30 is in the solar plexus. It wants to feel an experience. So that ice cream is like this sweet experience.
Totally.
Like that little bit of a dopamine tweak or hit that gate 30 really, really loves. So I have noticed that when people have that channel or gate 30 especially, that they do tend to have sugar cravings, and even going up to gate 36 as well. And with you having emotional authority, something to consider is whether you notice your sugar cravings are stronger or not, depending on what part of your wave that you're on.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great question. Maybe something for me to keep track of because, like I was saying, the wave feels less conscious. Like I'm less aware of it because it's unconscious. It's almost like I need it to be mirrored to me and other people, or how I'm reacting to other people. And then I'll be like, oh.
I wonder if that unconsciousness then might even go over into the sugar cravings where you're not even, well, I guess what you just said, you're not even sure if they're connected at that point. So what I would try doing is when you're getting a craving, sit with where it might be coming from. Like, where are you feeling it in your body? And does it feel like you're wanting an experience? Are you feeling bored? Slightly bored? Because I have gate 30 as well. I don't have the full channel, but it's my only gate in my solar plexus. And what I've noticed is when I get a little bored or antsy in my life, like I just want something exciting, I'm looking for an experience to fulfill that gate 30. And so then food, or when I'm in a good mood and I'm out with friends, I'm like, let's go get something sweet and like savory or sweet or savory to eat. So I do find myself looking to food, but then I come back to like, okay, I'm not actually physically hungry right now. So I'm going to try to fulfill this with a non-food feeling and get my dopamine or that experience in a non-food type of way. And if somebody has gate 30 in an undefined solar plexus like I do, something else I've also noticed is it has been a journey for me to feel my feelings with an undefined solar plexus and allow that nervous system capacity to feel deep feelings that gate 30 wants to feel, because I felt so overwhelmed by them. And I actually spent the majority of my life blocking them out in a way. I guess not even realizing I was repressing them, but that's definitely what I was doing. And so I would turn to sugar to stuff those emotions.
Right. Yeah. I'm sure I can relate to that.
Yeah, so maybe even on a wave, yeah, you might, if you're on a low, even if you don't really realize you're on a low, it could be when you're turning to sugar to like try to get rid of the feeling.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And
That makes so much sense.
Yeah. And this is so helpful. Like if you're my client, to be able to put words to this and then maybe even reduce the amount of times that you're turning to sugar and learn to process your emotions in a different type of way that doesn't require sugar. Like all of that is the root to getting rid of the sugar cravings and turning to better choices and helping you get to your goals.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Yes. Going back to the whole stress management and the nervous system regulation. Speaking of, I guess, and nervous system regulation. So you have gate 39 in your son, which is the gate of provocation. How do you think that helps you in the work that you do?
Oh my gosh. Okay. Yes. This gate of provocation. This has been a journey learning to deal with and work with my provocation. And when I was first told that I have this provoking energy, I could see that in myself because I used to say things and think it was funny and it might not be received that way. And so then in my undefined solar plexus, I could feel that. And then over time, I could then notice in reflecting back now how the 39 just got shut down, because I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. I'm afraid to create confrontation. The people pleasing side comes out big time in the undefined solar plexus, for me at least. I've been working on it, but what I've realized is that when I'm provoking from a place of my intuition, because my entire incarnation cross, 39 is my sun gate, but then my other part of my cross, another part of my cross is my intuition and my instincts. And I have found it to be so helpful to anchor that energy with my instinct. So if I can stay in my body and recognize like, oh yeah, this is the right timing, or, oh, they need to hear this, it always comes out in like a nicer way, I guess you could say, maybe a way that's more received. My tone is so important. So I've been working on the tone of my voice, because with this energy of provocation, I just realized I can provoke people just by like being present.
Yeah.
I can send out a text message to a group and provoke people. And I don't like that, but it is what it is. And so I can't block it, because I've also realized that people tell me that I've impacted them at certain times when I didn't even realize that I did. And so if I try to censor that because I'm afraid of stirring up emotions for whatever reason, then I'm not doing my purpose. I'm straying away from my purpose, because the gate 39 is here to liberate people. It's the provoking is to stir something in you that you may not have known needed to be stirred up, and highlight something to help liberate you, to help keep you to help get you unstuck, and to move you in a direction that's going to be closer to, say, your goals, for example, when I work with clients. And so I do feel like now I'm a pretty gentle provoker when it comes to giving recommendations and things. I try to soften that, like coming from this really loving, heart-led place. And if I feel in my instincts that it needs to be said, but I'm not sure how it's going to land, I'll often preface it with, okay, this might be a little provoking with what I'm about to say to you, but here's what I'm seeing. And usually then it seems to be better received that way. It's almost like I'm giving them a warning before I just like say it and shock them.
Well, it's sort of a little informing, right? For
True.
you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's true. As a manifesting generator, it is like informing. Yeah.
Which is great. And I can actually see how working in any profession in the health field, how having that provoking energy would be helpful, because when you are seeking help from a healthcare professional, you almost need the provoking to get you over the hurdles that come down the line, especially for the work that you're doing. You can sit with a client and give them advice and tell them what you see, but ultimately they have to do the work, right? They have to make the changes. And so that beautiful energy coming from you is just, it's almost like a cattle prod, like.
I know it is.
But,
and sometimes I will even say to them, I know I'm poking you a little bit to get you out of your comfort zone, because that is what it feels like. And I have gate 51 is my unconscious sun gate, which is the gate of
Oh
shock.
boy.
I
Yeah.
know. But I do have that full channel, and I really have leaned into that full channel 2551, the channel of initiation,
Hmm.
quite a lot, where it's almost as if I can see where they're going. I can see like their highest, fullest potential. And I see that in them, especially after I've gotten to know them and gotten to know their goals. And I hold that space for them, even if they can't see it in themselves. So I see where they are now. I can see where they want to go and their fullest potential. And this is where that poking comes in handy, because it's almost like I'm moving them along the path slowly, according to their comfort zone a little bit, but to get them there. And
Oh,
I hold that space for them, even when they can't see it in themselves.
I love that, Kelly. Oh my God. That is so beautiful. And I can see so clearly how the marriage of human design and your work in dietetics comes together to help you sort of soften the edges a little bit. That's such
Yeah,
a
it's
lovely
so
approach.
true. And it gives me a little more confidence, because now there's no guessing on my part, really, how I can best support them. I see
Hmm.
it in the chart. Like one of the clients I'm working with today, or now at this point, she's a manifester, an emotional manifester. She has a lot of definition. And so that is so helpful for me to understand and know about her. It's a different approach than like working with a projector or working with a generator or a
Right.
man. It's just different. And so
Right.
my words to them even are articulated a little bit more differently. I poke them a little bit differently depending on their type. So it does give me more confidence in my ability to guide them as their practitioner. And especially because it's in alignment with their energetics, that feels like so natural for them.
Yeah. Game changer, right? Like you poking a manifester can be like poking a bear maybe. So, right? Like you you want to give them as much autonomy as possible versus a generator maybe receives it a little bit more. And you do have that generator warmth that I think also makes you feel approachable and, like I'm going to listen to her. I like being in her juicy energy.
Thank you.
So we talked about the root center, and I'm curious if you could just expand maybe a little bit on the root center and its connection to our adrenals. I've heard a lot and read some research about the adrenals and adrenal fatigue, specifically when we are getting into midlife.
Yeah. So the root center, like I said earlier, is connected to the adrenals, cortisol, endorphins, and the adrenal glands. And there's something called the HPA axis. It's the hypothalamus, which is in your brain, and your pituitary gland, and then your adrenal gland. And they're all talking to each other. So when the body is stressed, the brain recognizes it and it sends out a message to the adrenal glands to create more stress hormone in order to survive. Basically, it's a really primal survival mechanism, this HPA axis. And this is important to help us deal with stress, but it's also easy to underappreciate how well it works for us when it stops, until it stops working so well. And then we start to get this fatigued because it gets off with how it releases the cortisol, the timing gets off, and
Mhm.
then that can really start to affect our health, especially with how tired we are, our energy levels. And so one way that you can kind of know how stress is kind of getting the best of you or potentially a problem is that you might have this pattern of fatigue where like you have a hard time getting out of bed in the morning and it's difficult to get going, but once you get going, you're pretty good throughout the mid morning, but then you hit another afternoon crash and then you're tired after dinner around 7 or 8, but if you stay up later, you're going to get a second wind around 10 p.m. And when you do get into bed, it can be hard to fall asleep because now you're like this active state where you're over adrenalized and then you're exhausted when the alarm goes off again in the morning. So it's this repetitive cycle. And that pattern is a really good sign that perhaps something's going on with your adrenal glands.
Mm. Okay. I feel like you just described most women in the in the US. I feel like so many women would relate to that pattern And
it's so common, especially after pregnancy. That's when it really hit me, was after pregnancy, when you're not sleeping very much because you're up with the baby and you have a lot going on, perhaps besides just the baby. And this is a prime time for adrenal burnout and thyroid issues, because pregnancy is the hardest thing on a woman's thyroid gland. So definitely pay attention to that if you, at that age, if you're having babies, because it's a prone time.
Okay. And in terms of kind of heading this off at the pass, or if you're already in this pattern, is it really about just those stress management kind of tools, meditation, movement, that type of thing? Is that what you recommend?
Yeah. So what I would look at is how much sleep you're getting, because that's one of the best ways to heal the adrenal glands, is to sleep enough. And then when it comes to exercise, actually too much exercise or too intense exercise can make it worse. So depending on what their current exercise plan is, they may need to scale it back a little bit.
Okay.
Otherwise, it's just adding more stress to the adrenal glands.
Right.
So sleep, optimizing sleep, taking a look at how intense your exercise is. And then nutrition is a huge part of this, because your adrenal glands require specific nutrients to function and to also recover from the stress more optimally. And so that's another thing that I would look at, is specific nutrients. Nowadays, there's some really great adrenal support supplements that are blends of a lot of different nutrients. And those can be really helpful for like a short term, just to give you the higher dosage of the nutrients that your adrenals need, and resupply them. And then once you're able to manage the stress and sleep better, you could typically not need those supplements anymore. But oftentimes supplements can really help initially.
Okay. That's good to know. I didn't realize that. Get you like back on track. And then when you were talking about sleep, it's not necessarily just the hours of sleep, right? But also the quality of sleep. Like, are you actually
it is
getting into deep sleep and REM and all that? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then also sort of related, I was reading on your blog about 7 essential nutrients. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that for supporting ourselves in midlife?
Yes, I would love to. So the blog I think you're referring to is 7 Nutrients for Healthy Adrenal Function.
Yes.
And okay, I would love to. So to start off with, the first one is magnesium. Magnesium is the first nutrient that's used up when you're stressed out. And so this can really help to re-supplement the magnesium in your body on a daily basis, can really, really help if you're somebody who's even just a little bit stressed out. I feel like a huge percentage of the population, I don't know what the number is off the top of my head, but a big percentage of the population is suboptimal in their magnesium. It's one of those minerals that I actually recommend quite often for people to supplement on a regular basis, regardless of stress. So the magnesium is really important for adrenal gland function. And then the next one is essential fatty acids, DHA and EPA. And this is also important for midlife, because during midlife, it can be a tendency to get higher cholesterol levels. And so whether that be like high LDL, which is like the lousy cholesterol, or lower HDL, lower of the healthy cholesterol, that's where you can get off balance. And so these essential fats are really, really great for your heart. And they're also great for your brain function. They reduce inflammation. And so if they come from fish, fatty fish, like shellfish, and like fish like salmon and mackerel and sardines. But I find that a lot of people don't eat that. They don't eat fish hardly ever. Most people don't. And you really have to watch how much fish you eat, because it's contaminated with heavy metals from our polluted water. So this is another area where I recommend people supplement with a high quality supplement of DHA and EPA, just so they're getting their essential fats. So every cell in your body has like a cell membrane that wraps around the cell, and that is made out of fat. And so it's in your brain and in your adrenal glands. So you need to have the healthy fat to concentrate around the cell membranes in your adrenal glands.
Yeah. Okay.
I personally love the brand Nordic Naturals. I am not affiliated with them, but I think they're a really good price point. They're not the most expensive, they're not the cheapest, and their company does a really good job of purifying their fish oil so that you're not getting contaminants in it. So I really like Nordic Naturals.
Okay. Thanks for that.
You're
Yeah. So,
welcome.
I mean, it can be overwhelming looking for supplements. So knowing what
Yeah.
is the right one. So that's great. We
Yeah.
can put that in the show notes.
And then the third nutrient are B vitamins, especially B5 and B12, B6. These B vitamins are really important for healthy adrenal function, healthy cortisol production. And you can get B5 and B vitamins from a lot of different foods. And at the same time, there's something called the MTHFR gene that processes B vitamins, especially like folate. And it's quite common to have a genetic mutation in that MTHFR gene where people aren't processing 100% of their B vitamins. So then they end up deficient. And you can test that by getting a genetic test. But B vitamins is something that people can experiment with if they wanted to buy a B complex, or they can Google what foods contain like vitamin B5. It's going to be like sunflower seeds, chicken, mushrooms, broccoli, peanuts, avocados, which is like such a random array of food.
Yeah.
But I think it just goes to show that eating a well-balanced diet is just so important.
Yeah. Okay. I love that. Eat the rainbow. Okay.
Eat the rainbow, absolutely. And the fourth nutrient is vitamin C. Vitamin C is really important for the adrenal glands. In fact, the adrenals contain a higher concentration of vitamin C than most other parts of the body. And when you are under stress, just like with magnesium, the body is using up vitamin C fairly rapidly. And vitamin C and magnesium, they're not stored in your body, so you have to replenish them every day. So eat your oranges, put the lemon in your water, the grapefruit, the strawberries, broccoli. All of those are really great sources of vitamin C.
Wow. Okay. That is so good to know. And I know when I'm not feeling well or starting to come down with something, I pound that, and that makes sense that it would be supporting the adrenals, calm the stress in the body and bring you back to balance and feeling better.
Yeah. And when you're fighting something, that is a stressor in itself.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So your body is using up the vitamin C to fight the pathogen.
Right. Okay.
So the fifth nutrient is called L-tyrosine. And this is an amino acid that's very important for dealing with chronic stress. So it plays a role in adrenal hormone production. It's a precursor for epinephrine and norepinephrine. So sometimes people need that initially. One thing, though, that can happen is, depending on the health of your adrenal glands, there could be some people who experience like an overstimulation of the adrenal glands if they take L-tyrosine. So just something to keep in mind if the supplement that you buy, the blend that you buy, has it in there or not. But it is helpful for dealing with really serious chronic stress that you're trying to pull yourself out of, I would say.
Okay.
And then the last one is a category of nutrients called adaptogens. Are you familiar with adaptogens?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay.
But tell our audience.
Okay, I love adaptogens. Adaptogens come from plants, and they're a specific category of plant that helps your body handle stress. These adaptogens work on the HPA axis. So it helps the body's ability to cope with physical and psychological stressors more easily and recover more easily from them. And the other really cool thing about adaptogens is they all help cope with stress, but then each adaptogen has its own extra unique thing that it does really well. So for example, ashwagandha is an adaptogen that's great for the adrenal glands. And ashwagandha is also so good for the brain, amazing for the brain. In fact, I think in other countries, it's been used to help with Alzheimer's disease. And then ashwagandha also is great for the thyroid. So each adaptogen has its own special niche. Plus, it's called an adaptogen because it helps the body cope with its hormonal response to stress.
Nice. Okay, that's great. And there are some mushroom teas out there that have adaptogens within them, or maybe are mushrooms an adaptogen or carry? Yes. Okay.
Yes, mushrooms are an adaptogen. So like the cordyceps and the reishi especially are great for supporting stress response. And also mushrooms are amazing for the immune system. So that's kind of their extra special niche as well as immunity. And then to go with your tea, that's actually nutrient number 7 is herbal teas, because there's certain herbal teas that are very relaxing, like passion flower, lemon balm, and licorice root are really calming and soothing. And then I think even like a reishi tea, a cordyceps tea, some sort of mushroom tea would be amazing to take at night. It's not stimulating, it's quite calming.
Okay. Yeah. Nice. Well, thank you so much, Kelly. This has been so informative, and I can't say enough how much I love the approach of combining human design and your work as a dietitian. I feel like human design is, since it's the energetics of you, it can be applied everywhere to anything, and it just like makes it better. It just, right? It feels like the key to things. And if you, like you were talking about earlier, it allows you to be able to know how to work with your clients better and to give them a more holistic approach. So anyway, I love
personalized. It's how you personalize. And I think personalized health is like the wave of the future.
Boy, I hope so.
Giving out generic recommendations, we're also different. It doesn't work very well.
Yeah. And I feel like as women in midlife, we're at this point where a lot of doctors haven't had the education around menopause, who we're going to see those doctors and they don't really know, when they're prescribing things that are more suited to the symptom versus kind of the whole of us. And so I really resonate with how functional medicine approaches things. And there's a time and a place for all of the different approaches, but I think it's great. So thank you so much for the work that you're doing. And thank you for taking the time today. And do you have anything cooking, or where can we find you? What kind of offers do you have out there? Tell us about that.
Okay, yeah, sure. I have my website, and that's where I write blogs. I love writing blogs about human design and nutrition and the connection that I make, because every gate and every center in the human design chart is linked to a body part. And so whenever there's something that lights me up or sparks me, I love to go write blogs about it. So that's on my website, kellyharringtonrd.com. And you can also find my human design offerings there and my nutrition offerings there, which of course I combine that with human design. I do a 30-day program when I work with people that I find to be super effective, because in 30 days we can accomplish a lot, and people take pictures of what it is that they eat throughout the day. So nothing goes undone, because a picture is worth 1,000 words. And so I have that there on my website, and I have an Instagram page. It's called dietitian.humandesign. And I am going to be doing a yoga and human design retreat in October in Portugal. And it's October 5th to the 11th. And we have one spot that just opened up if anybody's interested. So it has been fully booked for a long time, like almost 10 months. And then last minute, somebody's having to cancel. So I am looking for somebody to fill that spot. But yes, I'm doing the human design and some nutrition aspects. And then I'm working with a co-host who's doing yoga and breath work. So I'm super excited about that.
That sounds wonderful. All right. Well, we'll get all of that information in the show notes. And thank you again for your time. It was so great to see you again.
You too. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you so much for tuning into this incredible episode of Midlife by Design. I hope you found this conversation with Kelly Harrington as insightful and inspiring as I did. Isn't she just amazing? If you're ready to take your midlife journey to the next level and discover how your unique human design can guide you, then I invite you to book a personalized human design session with me. Together, we'll uncover your energetic blueprint and we'll create a customized plan that is tailored to your needs. Visit my website at lorilisai.com to schedule your session today. And please remember to subscribe, rate, review so that more midlife mamas can find us. It really does mean the world to me, and it helps so much. And as I sign off, I wish you the strength to let your baggage go, the courage to be who you came here to be, and the determination to live midlife by your design.